know me again in this time because my colleagues needed all the time they had. A lot to say on this issue. Obviously, being from rural Ireland and we're the rural independence. And Minister, I'm the same. I don't have any personal animosity to you or indeed Minister Ryan. His grandmother, his shanmother, or his shanahar, who dog count us, Tipperdon has. Shanahar the caravan tree, a wonderful public house in Linnavaharo. And his granny apparently in Clonoti. But when you get to Dublin, it's a common enough phenomenon actually, when people come to Dublin, second generation or first generation, they kind of throw away the wellies and don't want to ever again see him and hear about him and kind of see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. We're away from that. We'll become cosmopolitan and we'll forget about the country. I don't mind you forgetting about the country at all, because you have. But I do mind if you leave us alone and leave us eke out an existence and live a happy enough existence like our forefathers and forebears did. But no, you want to persecute us, destroy us, make us impoverished. And that's what's happening. And I'm not being alarmist here. That's what's happening in our country. And you can't seem to see it. And I too, like Hilly Reyes and Michael Conn and Deputy Nolan, like what you've done to the Board of Mona and the Bogs, just transition. It's the most unjust transition that you could ever design. And indeed, what you've done with the oil, the Ballyroe oil field, I called it an act of national sabotage. We had people here, companies coming in here, wouldn't bringing money into the state. And they wrote to Minister Ryan, the Minister for Energy and Communications, whatever else, and he wouldn't answer the letters for 3 years. 3.5, just frustrated him. And they decided to block that pipe, put concrete into it. Like, I have children, whatever, I read out, thank God, but I have grandchildren now. And they were playing outside with sand and gravel. They blocked the pipe going off the sink into the footpath, into the drain. You know, you'd be Buchel and Colleen Donna. But to think that our government agency would do that as an act of decommissioning. Decommissioning is one thing when it's talking about guns or something else, but an act of a national treasure, a national piece of infrastructure. I think men in the white coats should carry out investigations as to what's going on in this country. Certainly, because we don't have any mental health services, but I mean, something's badly wrong if people are just carrying out national sabotage, just undermining our strategic investment. When I go back to T.K. Whitaker and Sean Lemass and the people who founded this country, and indeed the visionaries that they had to bring electrification to all of rural Ireland, and they did some job. And we're here now with the last 10 years talking about broadband, and we can't bring it. And we're spending hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions and hundreds of millions, and we have many good private providers. One-man band and one band and maybe a couple of people working who have their own mast and providing in local areas. You're banishing all them out of existence because you have this new provider that's going to give us so many homes a minute or so many homes an hour. It's just failed utterly to deliver what's a basic tool that's necessary to carry on business, to be educated, to transact anything now. Whereas there's a Rinka classes, you're wrong, Rinka, I mean, they get them on all their phones down the music and the different styles of dancing and different tunes. So they need good broadband in any hall to do that. They need it. The farmers need it out for the sat-navs now and for the GPS systems out in the field spreading fertiliser, which you don't want to be overspreading fertiliser. So you need that, but they haven't the broadband to do it. And you must know that. And if you don't know that, you should know that. This situation with Irish Water, Ishkaern now, I always said the only thing I liked about Irish Water was the fucking Gaelic Ishkaern. But now, like, I want to salute and thank the county council officials and the outdoor staff in the plumbing section especially, and the ordinary general operatives for the work they have done. And go back further and salute the men helped by the women. When I see a video recently of the Ballylouby water scheme, which has been dug by hand and been the pioneers, and the late Joe Ray was involved in that, who became a fairly notable IFA leader, and brought water to people, group schemes. And the Count Conan know what I'm talking about. And we assisted in some cases, long before I arrived, but I was walking home from school off the bus when I saw Michael Barry. I still alive and I salute him in cap of white, laying pipes up my road to bring water to our houses. Before that, we had we had to draw it from the pump down the road, and the quarry we called it, with a horse and cart, or tractor and cart, and fill it in by hand and pump it in buckets and into barrels and feed cattle with it. That's the way it was. That's not 100 years ago. But those visionary people brought water, as they do now, people from Ireland and different organisations bringing it to the third world countries out in Africa and all, supplying water. We know the value of water. Then the big four over Irish water and the whole debate, and a hijacked debate actually, about Irish water, because water is a very valuable commodity, extremely valuable. Can't do anything without it. So they brought it. Then the group schemes were taken over by the county council, and many were decommissioned. Good supplies of water. Then we had the Irish water took over. And in the transposition of the statutory instruments across from county council to functional Irish water, left out one very important part, and that was the ancillary drains at the back of the houses, where they were built by the council, put in by the council, and now the households are left. And I tried to get that amended in legislation. They did in England, and we couldn't do it here. So to hell with the people. Let them sort out their own, you know what. So you have Irish water then, and this year then we had a big furore, and I had other speakers saying earlier, thank God it was resolved. But it's not resolved in Tipperary. But there was this handover, everything by the 20th of September, which came here the day we arrived back from our recess. So it's not, it's kind of resolved in Cork, I think, and something in water, but we had industrial action during the year by union workers, and I said out to them, I supported them, they're entitled to have certainty of tenure, have certainty of employment, have the rights that they have earned and increments with the county council, have that carried across to if they're going to work for Irish water. And the last management I had with senior management in the county council, the Oireachtas briefing, they were lethally telling us, the same day as I met workers, that from the 20th of September, they have no more to do with water. It's like they caught it here, off with you, we're delighted to get rid of it. A scandalous situation for the people who have group schemes. Many of those group schemes now have been switched off and turned off, and were told they're not fit for purpose. I raised it here as a topical issue about Ballia, Clonmala and the water situation there, and thanks to the County Corla, where we have valuable supplies from Pullmanogue, from up the Ragwell, and indeed from up in Glenahirey. All three venues in County Waterford, but they don't mind giving us the water to supply our town and our county. And Irish Water want to shut off the finest one we have that worked on summer that didn't have any outages, and stop at Pullmanogue one. And they're going to pump the water back up the road to the people. It's lunacy. Absolute lunacy. They have a fine reservoir there. They told us at a public meeting there that the reservoir was damaged outside. Now they're telling us it's damaged inside. So they don't even know where the reservoir is. And that's the major problem with Irish water. They don't know where the infrastructure. And good men have approached me on the street, and people who worked as caretakers in the water. One man, he was almost crying about 6 months ago. Do you know, Mattie, he said, I enjoyed my job, and you often worked with me, and people rang me all hours of the night and day, and we kept the water going. And 6 months before I retired, I offered Irish Water to send a man out with me to give him all the knowledge that I had, just to map and to know where all the air valves are, and where all the sluice valves, and where all the stop valves, and where all those very important T pieces are, and joinings, and where you can add in another main if you want to, if there's an outage in one area. And they refused. Imagine such an insult. The knowledge that he'd built up, and he wanted to impart it on to the next person. So now when water goes out, what happened recently in Glenahirey? They were dissatisfied with the council caretaker up there and his staff. They sent in a SWAT team. For 3 days, they worked in the plant. Didn't work in the plant. They turned off every valve and moved every valve and twisted every valve and did tomfoolery of all kinds. And next thing, and at 5 o'clock on the third day, they said, we're out of here. We failed. And told nobody. That's the tower of water. And then the poor caretaker had to go back in and try and find out what valve that moved, kept no account of what they did. They don't know, they don't understand the plant. With the wettest summer in history, not history, sorry, but very, very wet summer, and no water in the pipes, in the houses. The Talbot Hotel in Clonmel, 40 days without water from April to early September. We'll
have to go back to the gas now.
Yes, but I'm saying...
Water is great crack.
Yeah, but if you haven't the water, you'll have no gas.
True.
And when you're fracking gas, you have to have water to keep things cool. But anyway, no, it's all part of the construct that was set up and the separation of duties. Yes, the gas, I will go back to the gas, but I'm just saying that with 3 reservoirs, we've one in Carrick and Sholingon and one in Finnan Regional Water Scheme and the Galtee Regional Water Scheme. Massive plants, Barfin is relatively new, Lincoln is relatively new, and Galtee is maybe 30 years old. And they can't be filled this year because of technicalities and issues that Irish Water understand. So they can't be filled, and we've outages in low pressure off at night time, and people can't understand it. So I will go back, Councillor, sorry. The gas, and the gas terminal, and the LNG, such a breach of faith. And again, I want to repeat, because I was the leader of the group, of our group for the time being, and I organised a meeting with Micheál Martin after the last election. We met in a neutral venue, but he came on his own, so I knew well he had no intent on. There was 5, 6 of us, and 1 or 2 of our staff supporters. He had no interest whatsoever in joining us. We were prepared to support that government without the Greens, of course, but he had no interest. And we were prepared, and for people to say he had no other choice, he had a choice. But the prize of him being Taoiseach was the overall, only thing he saw. Tunnel vision, he saw that prize. He didn't want to be the only Fianna Fáil leader was ever Taoiseach. And by hell, the country paying a price for it. And in fairness to you, the Greens, like as Mattie McGrath said last night in fairness to us, we're against the carbon tax. He doesn't know what way Sinn Féin are to change with the weather every day, and the weather changes 4 or 5 times a day. So we're against the carbon tax. Of course we're. A punitive tax that's unfairly hitting elderly and vulnerable and older and rural people. So we know we stood where we were. You stood what for your policies. I know what they are. I wouldn't support them, couldn't support them. I'm totally opposed to them. And it's a state of affairs. So he made his bed with G, and now he's made it, he's a bit uneasy lying in it. It's getting a bit itchy and getting a bit, tenuous, and you know what I mean? I won't say anything but the dogs and lie down with fleas and you get up with dogs, whatever. I won't say anything like that. I don't mean that in any bad way. I'm just saying metaphorically the way he has blackguarded the country under ye. To shut down the bogs, the turf, the gas. We wanted to have a gas LNG floating terminal in Cork, Ballyroe and Isle, and then we had the Shannon LNG, talked about for decades. But Eamon Ryan and all your policy was to stop that at all costs, and you've achieved it. In a relatively short time, you've achieved it. And you should be congratulate yourself and say, well done. You lived up to what it says in the tin, you're honouring your election pledges. But the pledge that Micheál Martin, when he canvassed around, I won't go into the villages and tell you, I don't know them all anyway, and Minister Foley now said that he would, there was a prime plank of his policy was to make sure that the LNG plant in Kerry was going to be put forward. And then signed up a deal with his colleagues with Fine Gael, and at the behest of the Greens, to put it into that statutory statement, send more to Europe, they were going to destroy it. And that's what they have, destroyed it. That is an act of sabotage, and I would call it nearly treason. I would. To think now that we are depending on a pipeline bringing gas from England and God knows wherever, to think that we're stopping the burning of turf, and to think that we're closing the bogs, and to think that we closed down Lanesborough and others, and brought in the peat in from Latvia and other places. I mean, you just couldn't make it up, and nobody believed it. I, like everybody Collins today, went over to meet both the SIMI and also the solid fuel suppliers. And they're furious. They can't sell smoky coal, and they have to sell the coal and pay all that and be regulated and be within the law. And there's loads of coal coming down. They get rang up for a price. Oh no, you're £7 dearer in a bag than where I can get it from. Drop from Lisburn, drop to the yards in Cork and Kerry and Tipperary. Next day, where are the customs? Where are the VAT inspectors? Every day of the week we come on RSA inspectors on the road, with the Gardaí, the RSA, Revenue, Social Welfare, Hotel. Why aren't these people being tried? It's illegal coming in here, and we're wiping our sole traders out of business. Wiping them out of business. We have one in Ballingarry, a great man, John, and he had a sole business and employing a few people when he's busy. Wiped out. And tell us that we can't burn the smokers, and these can bring in loads of it. So that's rubbing the people's noses, and we wonder why people are angry and agitated and annoyed. Rubbing their nosing. So you have those suppliers, you have the people who worked on board in the morning, you have the people who worked in the gas, you have the people who had promises of more work in Kerry when that LNG terminal would be working. And above all, you had a duty of this government, any government, a duty was to ensure a supply chain, a fuel supply chain to keep our country alive. Previous speakers I was sitting in the chair spoke about the numerous warnings this year, Sinn Féin speakers and others, from the grid and from Air Grid, and about the outages in the middle of summer even. We see with us 400, these people have been turned off their gas and turned off their oil and coal and everything else. And we allow the data centres have increased the usage of electricity by 400%. Why would you treat data centres, multinational companies, like that preferential treatment and destroy the livings and the livelihoods of Irish families? What has got into this government that are so anti-Irish families and that they are so pro-big multinational companies? That's one basic clearing place. Hunting the people off the box cutting turf. I'm glad that people went to Borniaha this year. It's in Cundy, Port Lauriga, next to my parish, and cut turf. I'm glad that Mara Healy Ray was able to cut the turf, turn the turf, stand the turf, load the turf, bring it back home, and please God she'll be able to put it in the fire too and keep the stove going in the pub in Kilgavin. And I'm glad the many more did that. Sure, it's only common sense. It's of the land. God's given gifts of commodities and foods. You have the same with the cows. They're giving off too much gas, she said. You want to go back to gas count holder? They're giving off too much gas. It's great gas all. And you want to stop them doing that? So the thing is, doesn't add up. I mean, at all. But this is all might be slightly funny, but the people are seething with anger. Seething with anger. You want to force them into electric cars, and they can't get them charged. And you will not at any time look at the construct and the materials that go in to provide the batteries for the cars, the lithium, and it's mined by children, child slave labour. You'll put your head down definitely, and you won't look at all of that. It's a horrific abuse of children. And you find they make bigger batteries. I saw a bike the other day out the back here. I was going home and there was tons of bikes and a long bar and a big long battery like the Toblerone inside the barrel. Inside the barrel. There's a long battery, I'm told. I said, where's the battery? It's inside in the frame of the bike, I'm told. So, I mean, but it's all fine. Look, stop our people and perish them. Kill them of their livelihoods. Kill them of their culture, their heritage, their ducas as well. And kill them of that. But yet import all this stuff, and the fact it's coming from lithium mines by slave labour mining it, we're not interested. No interest in that. That's not. We don't mind. We're all best bite in the class. We're going to go green. We're going to go electric. Doesn't care where it comes from, and cut off our nose to spite our face in the resources, natural, God-given resources when the world was created, and the continuous then attack on the farming community, relentless. And the continuous, and you mentioned as well, Count Cole, the continuous spin out there that the farmers are pollutants. And we have agencies like the EPA then that will not inspect the county council effluent plants. Not plants at all, they're big septic tanks, they're not plant. And I told you I have 30 in my county. I told this to the county manager last day as well. And the EPA shouldn't have done that report about the rivers when they weren't going to be fair and inspect the council and the local authorities' effluent plants, and they blame the farmers. It's a trick, a trick. The farmers have done their best to mitigate, and it's going to take years for some of the solutions they have proven to take place. But the EPA are not fit for purpose. How dare they do a report and turn a blind eye to their local authorities? I got a picture there during the summer, lovely summer, one of the nice summer days, two lads from my county, young farmers, out on a boat off Dunleary, here in Dublin, and the two trails of sewers polluting out, and that's clean as day, a video of it, going out across the sea, and then you try and demonise the farmers. You won't fix what's going on in your own house. So, just to fit my focal score, Count Cole, and thanks for your forbearance, I think that this whole construct now of setting up this new company is fanciful, and it won't work. And look at the experience we have, Irish Water, and
I'm going to have to interrupt you because by order of the House we have to finish now.
All right.
On this, so I ask you to propose the adjournment of the debate.
Thank you for your
When you come back, you'll have 1 minute and 6 seconds.
All right, I propose the adjournment for Margaret.
I thought we might.